Probably wondering to yourself, Timber Drifter, why are you standing there hanging on to that pumpkin? Well, because it's a thing of beauty in several ways. So, I grew pumpkins last year. Some of them were bigger than this, but most of them ended up about this size. I harvested this pumpkin, I think, around 6.5 months ago. And as you can see, it still looks pretty good. I harvested it green because we were getting a lot of frost already at that point. And although pumpkins will take a few frosts, you don't want to let them go too far. And the deer kept breaking my fence down, trying to eat the pumpkins, and they got a few of them. We don't call them deer around here anymore. We call them stompers, because that's what they do. They stomp the shit out of melons and pumpkins and whatever else you're growing so they can eat it. Damn forest goats. But this is the last one. I've been hanging on to it for a while just out of curiosity to see how long it would store. I think I ate the last one over a month ago. But with the right growing conditions, you can grow a hell of a lot of pumpkins and they'll last a long time. So it's one of those good foods to grow if you're really relying on your garden. Squash is the same way. Some varieties of squash. And this is the third generation, I think. Second generation pumpkins. A buddy of mine that's a big gardener grew pumpkins year before last. Gave me the last one that he had left in the spring. Not sure if the seeds were viable or not. The seeds won't be viable in this one because I harvested it green. But he wasn't sure if the seeds in that pumpkin were viable or if it mixed with gourd a little bit. He wasn't sure, but I saved the seeds and planted them and grew a bunch of really great pumpkins. So this will be the seeds I have saved from last year will be the third generation of these pumpkins in this environment. And we're working on that with potatoes too. These are my seed potatoes. I didn't save them over, my buddy did. But they're a low starch fingerling variety. And there's at least 3 different types or colors, maybe 4, I don't really remember. You got these purple ones, which can be oblong or round, but they tend to be round. I don't know if you can see they're starting to sprout pretty good. There's these kind of tan colored, longer, pointier variety. There's a sort of a rose color. They're not sprouting yet. The purples and the tan colored ones are sprouting, but the rose colored potatoes really aren't just yet. It's probably a better example of that. Not the best light here today, but we got storms coming in. The light's not going to get any better probably unless the clouds suddenly move out of the way. These are the smaller potatoes. Some of them got a lot bigger than this. I ate the bigger ones. A lot of them are about that size. They're low starch variety. They store really well. Obviously these potatoes are as old as that pumpkin. Maybe a little younger even. Or maybe a little older even. I think they were harvested in September. The pumpkin was just stored around the potatoes. These potatoes were stored in a root cellar. Yeah, interesting. So this will be the second generation of these that we're growing. They are adapted. What I like about them is my house is not climate controlled. My climate controlling is having my wood stove running or not running or opening the windows and the door. You know, that's about it. Oftentimes over the colder part of the winter, it's about 40 degrees in there. And when I'm not there, the stove isn't running. So whatever's in there freezes. So my potatoes that I harvested, they were in below freezing conditions, even down into the 20s. A number of times, probably at least 5 or 6 times, and they never got that squishy, watery feel. While they were in my buddy's root cellar, they got down to freezing and stayed at that temp for a while. They didn't freeze. So I think these are the good potatoes for the northern variety, and the more we get them, a good variety for the north, right? For people that don't live in climate-controlled environments. And we could have frost anytime. Just about. From June, our last frost date is like June 8th, June 10th, and we can start having frost as early as late August or September. So our growing season is quite short. But sometimes you get a good year. Who knows? It might not frost again. It's May 10th. We may not get another frost, but we probably will get a few more. So I'm letting these sprout. I'm going to cut them up around the eyes. And maybe in 2 weeks I'll plant them. And then they should be mostly coming up after the last frost. What's typically the last frost. Planting radishes and lettuce and bunching onions and things like that. Hopefully it'll stay cool for a while longer so they grow well. We'll see. This is Arturo Fuente Natural, I think. I don't really have a budget for cigars right now, but I like these. And they're currently $4.09 a piece. Last year they were, I think, about $3.80 or something like that. It's one of the cheaper cigars, and I actually like them a lot. I've been smoking them for years in warm weather. They're very mild. They generally burn pretty well. Every once in a while you get one that wants to run on you. Very rarely have a hard draw with these. But cigar every now and then. So what I was thinking, since I've been saving this pumpkin, see how long it would last. It still smells good, it looks good, sounds good. I kind of want to eat it. So, figured I'd cut it open on camera and we'll see if it's any good. You see how I'm... Put that down. You see how I'm blocking how deep the knife can go by resting the palm of my hand and my fingers against the blade while gripping the handle here. That way I'm not going to push through and cut into my hand. My hand gripping the knife will stop my hand from over penetrating. Pumpkins can be pretty hard to cut open, so can squash. I see people struggling with that quite a bit. I'm going to set it down just to make sure. Alright. One of my favorite old butcher knives. No mark on it. But it's just right as far as butcher knives go. Oh, that smells good. Sometimes pumpkins can get bitter when stored a long time. This still smells really sweet. And the flesh is in good shape. It's not getting that mealy texture or that overly watery when you push on it, water comes out of it. Now this is perfect. 6.5 months old. Or 6.5 months from harvest. That's alright, huh? The way that I cook pumpkin, I'll actually cook it like potato a lot of the time. I'll just chunk it up and fry it, or use it in soups, or cook it in halves and quarters in water and butter in a covered pot. My favorite way to cook it is to stuff it. Cook some meat and onions, wild rice. Stuff it inside of an uncooked pumpkin. Just cut the top off like you would a jack-o'-lantern to reach in and pull the seeds out. And pull all the seeds and stringy bits out of there. Stuff the already cooked stuff in there and put it either in a covered Dutch oven, or you can do it in an oven. I don't have a electric or gas oven. Do it that way, or my favorite way to do it is right next to a fire with a rock behind it. Not a real hot fire, just a small one with a lot of coals. And as the outside of that pumpkin starts to darken and moisture beads start to come out of it, you just keep turning it to the fire. That's my favorite way to cook them. I don't do that very often. Yeah, so you probably weren't expecting to see a pumpkin in the spring. We always think of that as more of an autumn thing, right? I love them. I just like seeing them around. And it makes me happy to look at them. So, high wind the last 3 days, with yesterday being a real windstorm, so there's a lot of trees down. And a lot more trees that will be coming down because they got blown loose at the roots. I got a couple over here, a couple of spruces that I can see where the trunk goes down, and they have that little angle where the roots go into the ground. I can see that the ground is popped up on one side and the tree's leaning a bit. So that could last a long time like that, or it could just come down the next time we have a big wind, or just whenever it feels like it. Got black bear sneaking around again, just like last year. I don't know that it's the same bear. You know, I built my place right on a bear trail, not realizing it at the time. But this is how they move through this landscape between the bogs. So they do come through here. But I've had one walking around looking at things a couple of times. I haven't talked to this one yet, see if it's friendly or not. But it hasn't torn anything up yet. I got to build fence around the garden. That's first priority. Fencing is far too expensive, and I don't have enough of the wire fence on hand to fence in all of what I'm putting in. So since there's been so many windstorms the last 6 months, there's a lot of smaller stuff down, and a lot of smaller trees that got snapped or severely bent by other larger trees falling on them. So I'm going to start collecting as many of those as I can, splitting them out lengthwise, and just build fence. I'm thinking of doing the old wattle hurdle pattern, but taller. It's the old like mobile sheep fence. You just build panels of fence, use a ring of rope on the top pieces to hold them together, spike them into the ground. I'm thinking about doing that so I can move the fence around, but I'm going to build them, 6 foot tall. So that's a lot of work doing that. But a roll of fence is like $200 right now. So I don't have the budget for that. That's what's going on. The other thing I should mention about pumpkins, you get so many seeds from them, just like squash. But pumpkin seeds are nice, dried out and roasted, salted a little bit. Good edible. Nice something to chew on while you're working or doing something. Fairly nutritious. As you can see now, it's sitting out here in the heat. It's starting to beat up a little moisture. That's fine. Oh, it smells good. Pumpkin's one of those foods that'll get you through. Back in the old frontier days, back in the 1600s even, they were growing, well, of course the natives were growing pumpkins, but the colonists were growing pumpkins as well, and you'll see that right on through, all the way through, up into about the 20s, I think, and people ate pumpkins. Of course, we still eat pumpkin today, but only as pie, and most people don't really think of it being edible. I also used them for livestock feed too. Yeah, pumpkins and potatoes, they'll get you through. Store a long time. Packs plenty of nutrition, fill your belly up. Well, I think that's all I got on my mind. 6.5-month-old pumpkin. Still good. I'll take care. Get outside.